I do what I do.
Carolina is a city known for its picturesque waterfront and rich history, but beneath the surface lies a dark and violent past. In 1898, Wilmington was the site of one of the most brutal acts of racial.
1898, this is right after Reconstruction ended. Well, not right after, but Reconstruction ended in 1977. Listen, this is what they did. You immigrants who swear up and down, all you got to do is work harder. We did work hard. We've always worked hard. And they came in and tore our stuff down out of jealousy. Black people had land. We had farms. We had money. We had wealth. We had our own towns. This is what white folk did. Okay.
Violence in American history, known as the Wilmington Massacre. The growing influence of black voters and politicians threatened the power of white supremacists in the city. So on November 10th, 1898, a group of armed white supremacists, including members of the Ku Klux Klan, marched on City Hall, intent on overthrowing the government. They attacked and killed black residents, burned down black-owned businesses.
They burned down black-owned businesses. See, it's not just about your skin color, it's about your ability to earn and generate money in this system. Remember what I told you, the delusion that hits white folk when they see you doing well, they just can't believe you must have got it dishonestly because you people can't do nothing right, according to this brainwashing I've received called white supremacy. Let's keep listening.
Forced elected officials to resign at gunpoint. The aftermath of the massacre was devastating.
They forced the black elected officials to resign by gunpoint. You understand me? I want you to understand what these folk, the extent that these people go.
The thriving community was destroyed, and many residents were forced to flee their lives. The Wilmington Massacre of 1898 is a tragic reminder of the brutal violence and oppression that American descendants of slavery have faced throughout history.
That's just one of hundreds.
I need you to sit with this.
Colfax, Louisiana.
Over 100 black men were unalived in one day. Not during slavery, after it ended. And not by some rogue vigilante. This was coordinated white rage.
100 black men were unalived in Colfax, Louisiana in one day. Can you imagine that? One day. You could have lost your all the men folk in your family. I want you to understand, all you black immigrants who swear up and down that you were dealing with the same stuff we were dealing with. No, you haven't. What does that do to a family to lose one man? Now imagine what it does to a town, to a community to lose 100 men in one day.
Backed by a system that never intended for us to be free. So let's talk about Colfax, Louisiana. The massacre the textbooks call a riot, but the ancestors know better. It was Easter Sunday, 1873. Reconstruction was in full swing, and black folks in Grant Parish had just made political history. They'd voted, organized, and helped elect a legitimately biracial Republican government that didn't sit right with the local white Democrats. So what did they do?
Keep in mind, the Democrats were the party of the white man.
And when that didn't work, they loaded their rifles. About 150 black men, most of them formerly enslaved, took refuge in the courthouse to defend their newly elected officials. For 3 weeks, they stood their ground. Then came the siege. A white mob of more than 300 stormed the courtroom with guns and even a small cannon. When black defenders finally surrendered, thinking they'd be taken into custody, many were executed on the spot, hands in the air, kneeling, still unalived. And here's where it gets even more sickening. Only 3 white men were ever tried. Only 1 was convicted. In the Supreme Court, they overturned it because they said the federal government had no right to prosecute private citizens for violating the civil rights of black Americans. So let me say that again. The highest court in the land said that protecting black life wasn't in their jurisdiction. This was the beginning of the end for Reconstruction. The Klan emboldened black voters, intimidated, federal protections snatched away. So the next time somebody says, we've come a long way, ask them if they've heard of Colfax. Ask them why the mass unaliving of black people was treated like a misunderstanding. Ask them why it's still called a riot. And while they scramble for the answers to your questions, remind them, our people didn't die for a seat at the table. They died defending the one that they built.
You hear that? Now I want you all to understand what Colfax, Louisiana is. Let me show you something on my cell phone. Okay. I want to show you something. Look at this. You see that? Now that's Colfax, Louisiana right there. If you see right above, there's a little town called Ruston. Just to the west of that town is a place called Grambling State University, about 6 miles to the west. That's where I went to school. You understand me? So invariably, that's part of that town's history. You understand? This is how close this is to me. And on top of that, I went to school in Baton Rouge. Let's keep listening. So this is our reality as Black Americans. You ever heard of Sundown Town? Somebody type Sundown Town, and that's clearly one of them. Hit the number one, but let's keep listening.
So the argument that Reconstruction failed is part of the lost cause narrative. So the lost cause narrative being that narrative that ex-Confederates created to justify why they lost the Civil War. So they go through and they rewrite the history of the war, and they say, the war wasn't about slavery, it was about states' rights and all of.
They do try to do that. They try to rewrite this history, right? Instead of calling it a massacre, they call it a riot. It was a riot, and we just put it down. No, that's not what happened. Let's keep listening, though. Hit the number one button.
But they add on to it with Reconstruction, and they say Reconstruction failed. They said Black people were freed from slavery. They were given every possible opportunity to succeed. They got the vote and equal rights and all.
They got the vote. They got the equal rights. But when they exercised those rights, we went into the town and we unalived all of them by the hundreds. They never tell you that part. So you immigrants, you Black immigrants, you come over here, you think you understand what's going on. You call us lazy. You tell us to work harder. You don't think our foundation of Black American brothers and sisters worked hard coming out of slavery to build all these towns and then just have them turn around and get burnt right down? That's what you all don't seem to understand. Let's keep listening.
All of these things, and they failed to make the most of it. So that was a story that they told. And it went right alongside with the Civil War being about states' rights and having nothing to do with slavery. So this is the big lie of the 19th century.
Big lie.
Well said.
Yes, of the 19th century. But this argument that Reconstruction failed is part of that, right? And so a lot of people grew up hearing it. And when you talk to young people today about what they learned about Reconstruction, they say, well, it failed. And when you press them on what failed, they can't tell you what failed. Or they won't tell you what failed, depending on where they went to school. And so, what I realized with listening to the audience, listening to people, what I heard was that historians have been using this shorthand. And what they mean is when historians today use it, what they're saying is that the federal government failed. But they're not saying explicitly that the federal government failed. They will use a shorthand and say Reconstruction failed. And it's like, no. You're feeding into the problematic narrative by not saying who failed to do what. And what people are doing is they're taking that silence and they're filling in the blanks. And some of those blanks that they're filling in are those stories that they heard in K through 12, which is that Reconstruction failed because Black people failed to make the most of it. So I argue we need to let that narrative go. And if we're talking about who failed, we need to say exactly who failed. But we also need to acknowledge that Reconstruction was violently overthrown. And abandoned.
Violently overthrown. Shout out to David Johnson. That's the point I wanted to make. Let's move on to this little lady right here. Now, I want you to understand, when they talk about all these men and women and children killed, we're not just talking about poor folk. We talk about lawyers, doctors, educated from the North, from the South. If you had Black folk from other countries there, like immigrants from the Caribbean, all of them got unalived at that day. Keep listening.
An environment that encourages political violence. The parallel between what the KKK did during Reconstruction, remember, they too unalived political leaders, and the climate that Trump's America is creating is uncanny. Y'all, we are witnessing a troubling repetition of history. What is currently happening in this country happened during Reconstruction. Are you listening? Y'all need to wake
Fair
up
use.
and see the danger of this administration.
So I started doing some digging into this soldier right here, George Alonzo Thomas. George grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, where his father worked for the government. In September 1906, the Thomas family's life was altered forever. For 4 days, white mobs took to the street in an orgy of death and destruction, attacking black civilians and destroying black-owned businesses, including taking the life of one black Civil War veteran, George Union Wilder. Fortunately, the Thomas family survived and joined over 6 million black Southern refugees seeking safety in the North. The family lived at this house at 65 N Street North.
You hear that? 6 million black people had to leave the South. Now they talk about the first. I'm gonna talk about that too. But you understand that this is what's going on. This is what's going on with black folks. Okay. This is what we had to deal with.
Black father, black son.
Weekly feeling despite. From the heart through talking night. Every episode brings a light. Subscribe, hit the like, won't you dare. Share the love, you know it's family. Join us every week, don't be late. Drop some coins in the collection plate. Drop some coins, enjoy the ride. Come say hi, catch the wave, don't pass by. Let the spirit's always inside. In this podcast, joy takes flight. Subscribe, hit the like, won't you dare. Share the love, you know it's fair. Join us every week, don't be late. Drop some coins in the collection plate. Drop some coins.
Donation. I thought it was a track. Oh, you put the money in.
Hey man, I'll do what I do.
You know that.
Your ass, class, don't come over here. You tall black mother. Women up inside. I don't give a fuck about